Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. This is myself, George, bringing you another review, and this time it's going to be a bit different. This is another home media review. We did the first one a couple of weeks ago with Top Gun Maverick. We were sent a copy of the film to review the behind the scenes, of course, the film itself, and a few other things. And this time we're doing a very special double bill of the 1953 The War of the Worlds, and in a double feature release with When Worlds Collide, which was at 1951, which is now out on 4K for everyone to purchase in a lovely new double feature. And I'm going to be giving my thoughts on both of those films alongside some of the behind the scenes that I've had a chance to watch. And once again, a very special thank you to Paramount for sending me out a copy. The War of the Worlds is a film I've actually never seen. I was very excited to get the chance to see one of those that's on that immortal list of I've not seen it yet, but eventually I will. As a big fan of sci-fi, it's maybe been a few years too long since I've not got around to it, but I finally have, and I'm going to be giving my thoughts on them. But before I get into that, I want to hear from everybody at home, so please do comment below with your thoughts on The War of the Worlds, maybe the 1953 version, maybe the 2005 version, maybe the book, the radio broadcast, everything. I'll be curious to get your thoughts on this, and sci-fi films in general. Of course, this is a 1950s double feature. George Pell produced both of them, and it's quite exciting to see some of these older films that I've not had a chance to, especially with modern day restorations, which I think goes a long way, which I will be talking about. And if you want to find out about some more videos coming up on the channel, please consider following us on our social medias, Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy, and we have a link to Letterboxd in the description below. You can also get a link to our Redbubble store if you want to help support the channel and pick up any merch. But that's the intros, and now I'm going to try and talk about these. So, as I said previously, this is the second video we've done of these. You might also be wondering, why am I doing it to camera? Why am I doing it on the webcam? I'm in the process of changing my room. I'll be moving up to another floor. So over the next month or two, you might see a few changes. You might see no backgrounds for a while, but either way, long term, I think it's going to work out much better. So to record some recording space. So yes, that's the reason I'm doing on here. But if I'm going to talk about this, because it's really tough doing these home media ones when you've not done them before, any feedback you want on these, but this is the copy of the film, and it is a lovely case. Now, I'm not going to do an unboxing video. I actually should have, because this is a very, very good box set for anyone that is curious about these. It comes as a double feature, but the actual artwork I want to talk about, I put it on my personal social media, which completely blew me away. Now, in this modern day of age, where we have so many companies that don't put any effort into the discs, into what they're making, we have here something I've never seen before, and this is like a 3D poster of the War of the Worlds. So obviously the disc is still in my Blu-ray player, but I just wanted to put that on there for everyone to have a look at home, because the question I have is, why aren't more companies doing really cool stuff like this? Again, this is a classic film from the early 1950s, and of course there's a devoted fan base for War of the Worlds for science fiction, and these are the kind of things that collectors, that people enjoy buying physical media, appreciate more. Is that jump of effort put into these. And I've noticed with the era of 4K, there's a lot more of these going around, where we're getting some of these like prestigious box sets. I think we're slowly not moving away from steelbooks, but I think we're in this era now where we're just getting a little bit more effort, which I think is kind of appreciated. And my theory, as I mentioned in the Top Gun video, I think 4K is going to be the last era of physical media, which is a real shame. And I think 8K onwards is all going to be streaming. And alongside that lovely background, it also comes with something, again, a bit different. We've got some art cards. We've got stills of the film. We've got posters. I'm just going to go through a couple of them there for you at home. You know, again, classic posters for a classic film, and a load of stills from both films, which I'll go through. So again, it is an interesting one, and even cooler, fridge magnets. Didn't know these were still a thing, but there's War of the Worlds, and there's the shit from When Worlds Collide, which also looks like Futurama. I'm going to be reading up on that because I kept thinking about Futurama, so I'm going to assume that was a big inspiration for when Futurama was made into a series. But as I said, this isn't an unboxing video. If you would like to see unboxing videos down the line, let me know. I'll be recording them properly, off the camera, proper HD, and I can do all of that when I'm in the new setup. So there is a box set in December, which I might be purchasing, which I think would be the first time I do it. I won't reveal what that is yet, but it's a film I've spoken about a few times already this year, and there's a sequel from 30 plus years ago, so I shall leave that there. But if I'm actually going to move on from talking about the 4K, I'm actually going to talk about the film now, because I'm going to try and double this up with a bit of a review for each film, but hopefully not too long, because as I said, I'm a big fan of science fiction, and I've never seen The War of the Worlds. Now, if you followed our Steven Spielberg series, you'll have known we did the 2005 War of the Worlds a month or two ago, which was genuinely one of my favorite videos on the series. The series is finished at the time of recording and releasing this video. The last 2 episodes are going to be out in the next sort of 8 days, so I can talk about the series as a whole. But War of the Worlds was genuinely one of the best discussions I think I've ever had on the channel. It was so much fun. It was me, Tom, Paul, and Sam on that one. A lot of incredible discussions all throughout that. But getting the chance to dive into Worlds is something, you know, we hadn't been able to do on the channel. And with the 50s one, it's a shame I'm by myself, because I'd love to talk about it with those guys as well, see if they've seen it or their thoughts on it. But, you know, you got to appreciate this was made in 1953. This is the pre-sci-fi boom. This is even pre-2001: Space Odyssey. This is that sort of post-World War II era where there are a lot of, I sort of call them like the pulp science fiction films. Like, you got all the very weird ones you think you'd drive in cinemas, the dawn of special effects, I could almost call it myself. And getting the chance to see it for the very first time, I thought was very special. And I'm going to talk about the actual 4K restoration of it, because it is unbelievable that this technology, that we're looking at a film from 1953, which genuinely, you know, on the verge of its 70th anniversary, looks absolutely incredible. It genuinely looks better than most films today. It is a credit to the team that have worked on restoring the film. When we get the first time you get to see, I guess they're not called the tripods in this, but the Martians, it's really interesting how great it looks, and even the build-up of suspense. And I know some people might think, you know, oh, the visuals are this and that. It's still really cool to see all of that, but just to see, you know, when these things are made on stages, on sets, we get to genuinely see like the craft that there was around in the 1950s, that there has been around for many decades in the industry. And it's something, again, the pre-noughties, where I think more films are moving digital, which won't age as well. It's these classics that are always going to age phenomenally, and it was no different for this. The sound was superb, the visuals were excellent, and I was genuinely surprised at how good it is. I thought it might be one of those 4K, you know, remasters where it looks nice, nothing special, but it's a nice jump up. This looked incredible. So if you're a fan for the technical side of things, and this is immediately, I'm going to say, worth your investment. Again, from the War of the Worlds perspective, if you wanted to pick this up on 4K, if you're a fan and you're curious about how it has come out, you don't need to worry about that. I think there was a Criterion a couple of years ago, actually. I don't know the specifics of it. It was the same version that the Criterion was. And if anyone is curious, I'm going to put it in the description for these home media reviews. The setup I was reviewing it on was on a 43-inch 4K Sony Bravia TV, which is my normal room when it's the one from downstairs. The 4K Blu-ray player was a Panasonic one. I couldn't get the spec, and another 5:1 surround sound. So that's going to be my setup for a lot of these home media reviews, but I will put them in the description of the specifics of them. So if you are curious, you can check that out. And yeah, that's the technical standard. Again, I'm new to these, so the sound, again, I can't fault. It sounded excellent, but I want to talk about the film, which I really do. This adaptation really took me off guard, because I never realized this was set in America. It made so much sense that it was obviously set in California, post World War II, obviously the early 50s. There's this incredible opening where they're going through sort of moments of history. I know, again, if you've seen the film, you'll know, but for me that's never seen that, you sort of realize how close this was to World War II. It's 8 years after. And I think sometimes in modern day, we genuinely forget how recent some of that modern history is. And for them to make a film like this, talking about the devastation of, you know, the nuclear bomb, this could be one of the most powerful weapons ever made since then. If that was 2022, it'd sound even more crazy. But 8 years later, it kind of makes sense that it would be spoken in that measure. And I think where the film ends up going, it's really interesting seeing it again from a very modern perspective. And I think my perspective, in the sense of I've grown up with the Spielberg version, that was really interesting for this. Whereas I guess you'll get sci-fi fans that have grown up with this version. You might even have some people that are more familiar with the radio broadcast, which I will get to speak about a little bit later on. But my thoughts on the film, I very much enjoyed it. It was one more or less for me ticking off a list. I still not read the book. I think if I ever read the book, which I should do eventually, I would probably go through and listen to everything in like a release order. This would be my own personal time, not a series. And I want to do this. There's been a few modern TV shows as well, so it'd be really interesting to talk about War of the Worlds more in length. And again, that video from September was incredible, so please do check out that if you're a fan of War of the Worlds. I think it's our most viewed episode of the Spielberg series so far, actually. And of course, with the Blu-ray, you know, one of the big reasons we do this is to talk about the behind the scenes. Is what are you really getting for your money aside from the film? And there's some really good behind the scenes on this. So for the War of the Worlds disc, certainly there are two commentaries. One of them, you've got Anne Robertson and Gene Barrow, who of course the lead roles in the film. Now, I didn't get a chance to listen to the commentaries, a very short turnaround because there's a lot of things happening at home, as I sort of mentioned earlier. And the second one is Joe Dante doing a commentary alongside Bob Burns and Bill Warren, who are all film historians. Obviously, Joe Dante, director. Again, I've not had the chance to check them out, so that is me on the blue for that. However, I did get to see the behind the scenes features, which were incredible. So there's a 30-minute documentary called The Sky is Falling, the making of War of the Worlds, which I thought was excellent. And you've got film historians on there that I mentioned previously. You've got the lead actress and actor. Now, I think this was the early noughties, because I think it must have been just after its 50th anniversary. But even that, it's showing the old footage, and I'd say it's probably in like 720p, 1080p. But when you're seeing clips from the film in that, and you've just seen this 4K version like myself, it really shows the quality of what they've been able to do in these transfers, and again how modern technology is really putting, I think, these classic films in a special space that I believe that celluloids. The theory is that I think it can run up to, if the human eye ever got to like 1620k or something. That's why the preservation of film is so important for the industry moving forward, and for projects like these. Whereas you shoot on digital, as wonderful as digital is, and it's been very important as so many filmmakers making their steps into the industry. It's not something that is going to age beautifully. I think some films will, some films won't. But either way, that is a really interesting point to look at down the line. And I'd even go so far as to say that this 4K probably looked better than the 4K for the '05 War of the Worlds, a film I loved, and I think that's more the intention from Spielberg and how that film is shot, how it comes across, very documentary-esque. But certainly with this one, it is seeing that 1950s Hollywood studio system in operation, and it's a really cool way to see it on the screen. And as I mentioned, the making of the behind the scenes, some of the interviews absolutely adored, with the historians talking about its popularity, designing the Martians, and kind of one of the most devastating things is that none of the actual ones used ever survived. They were sort of welded down into and given away to sort of scrap for the material. And that did happen back then in the industry, and that's something of course wouldn't happen today, but there are replicas that have been built over the years. But it was really interesting learning about the process from what Wells wanted. Wells' son was involved, so eventually it going to George Pal and who we wanted to get involved on the project. And yeah, I recommend that if you are picking up this, please do check out that special feature. And there's also a great 10-minute sort of mini documentary on H.G. Wells. It's called The Father of Science Fiction. If you've never heard that nickname for him, it's abundantly clear as to why. And that's a lovely insight into the process, into the book, its legacy moving forward. And the one thing this has, which I haven't had time to do at the moment, and I want to listen to this in the correct circumstances, this has the original the Mercury Theatre on the Air presents the War of the Worlds radio broadcast. If you're unfamiliar with this broadcast, this is a 1-hour broadcast. I think it was done for Halloween in 1938. Orson Welles, of course, was involved, and people genuinely thought that Martians had attacked Earth. It's well worth reading about, and I've never been able to listen to it. I've heard samples of it in the past, but that's something I'll be listening to properly, because I've always been curious about it. I didn't know it was out there on discs for people to get the chance to listen to, so I'm excited to do that in the proper circumstances. So again, it's not something that could have made this review today, but it is something that I will be looking at in the future under correct circumstances, as I said. And of course, then you get other things like the original trailer for the film, which is very expected in boxes like this. And I think as well, from a modern perspective, I love seeing how 1950s trailers were put together, completely different eras of cinema. And obviously, no internet, no nothing like that, no phones, all designed that people would see it before a film proceeding, which is, I think, always interesting when you get to see those old broadcasts. But yeah, that's going to do it for the War of the World side of things. Now, the other part is When Worlds Collide, as I mentioned, another science fiction film from 1951. Now, this isn't on 4K. It's very much a double feature box, but that stays in the original Blu-ray format. I watched the film. I'm not going to lie, I didn't enjoy it as much as War of the Worlds. It's very much that religious undertaking of... I mean, I wouldn't say religion's taking it. It's very Bible orientated in the sense of an Adam and Eve moving. Our planet's about to be destroyed. We need to build this craft to move to another planet that we can live on, and only X amount of people can come with us. Now, it sounds very much like Interstellar, which it doesn't feel like really watching it, but now I've just said out loud, it really does. And what I would say when Worlds Collide was really fascinating for me, aside from the ship looking like the one from Futurama, the 1950s, I don't believe the space race has started yet. We're still in that atomic race post-World War II. And it's really interesting seeing these science fiction films before the space race truly began. I mean, some historian might correct me out of the blue and say the space race maybe began in the late 40s. I don't know, but it wasn't at the level we knew it was in the in the late 50s to early 60s, that 1951 is almost the dawn of all of that. And it's really interesting to see this take on, also a world-ending film. That I always go back to Greece when they're at the drive-in and you see the I think it's the Blob, and you always get that weird trailer and they're all screaming. That's how I felt when Worlds Collide felt. It's a film designed for the drive-in theatre experience, and again, you have to place yourself in the 1950s, and the restoration in 1080p looks absolutely fine. I know it's been around for a few years, but if I'm being honest, I didn't enjoy the film anywhere near as much as War of the Worlds. Maybe it's the source material, maybe it's the fact that it was very different, and it wasn't the core of me wanting to see it. It was very much a bonus, but you can't fault getting two films on this that you don't get that often anymore. These double features used to get like DVD and Blu-ray packs all the time with just two completely random films, and it's really cool to see that George Pal is involved in both of those, and he was very much at the forefront of science fiction films in the 1950s. And it's got me curious reading more on George Pal when I've finished reviewing these films and seeing what else he might have done that I might have seen. But yeah, so I think that's going to kind of do it for the review. Again, it's a very weird one doing these home media ones. It's the first time we've done them. I'm just going to show that 3D thing again because I'm still completely amazed that these aren't done more often. How great would that look if you had a 3D poster for your Star Warses or something else like that? Not that you can display it, but it just shows that they are making effort for these box sets, for these films. And that's what I enjoy doing. As a collector of physical media, it's a form that's important to me. I enjoy having them. As you can tell behind me, I've got over 500 Blu-rays. I enjoy collecting them. I enjoy the option of, it's not just a bit of a streaming site. It's advocating the experience, and also it's better than streaming. If you watch a 4K film, it will look better on your 4K TV on Ultra HD Blu-ray disc than it does on a streaming site because there's no compression, the sound's better, and so many other things like that. So that's going to be me waffling about physical media cinema experiences again. I'm going to hold off for next time, and I say next time because there will be another 4K home media release. I will have more details nearer the time. But as I said, we're quite new to doing this on the channel, and maybe in December, January, when we start planning out stuff for next year, this will be a much more regular segment, and it'll be far more organised than me waffling on a live stream. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I want to thank you all for watching. And as I said, please do comment your thoughts, and maybe you want to pick this film up. If you are going to pick it up, I do recommend, I guess you should finish with that. Is this a film I'd recommend to everyone? No. But if you're a fan of science fiction, yes. Are you a fan of collecting 4Ks? Then yes. Very weird thing to collect, but I understand why. And as I said, I just keep looking at the box art. It's really cool to see these early 50s stuff getting their time, getting their release, and it is well worth investing in. If you're looking for a gift for a sci-fi fan, this is the sort of thing that will probably go down well with them. It'll be a unique experience for people that haven't seen this film before, and I think it could truly wow them. So yes, that's going to do it for my reviews. Thank you all for watching. Comment along. We've got a lot of other stuff happening. As I mentioned, the Steven Spielberg retrospective, we've got West Side Story going up tomorrow. We've got the top 10 ranking video, which we've recorded. We're in the middle of editing. That's going to go up next Tuesday to round out our Spielberg retrospective. We've got Andor reviews. There's so many things happening on the channel. Please do consider hitting the subscribe button if you like these, if you want more of these. I have mentioned about doing like a video where I go through my entire home media collection. That's something I'll probably do in the new year when I've moved to a new location. Which will be quite exciting to design this. There'll be new posters. There'll be really interesting stuff that might be able to happen with recording space. So, as I said, please do stick around. We appreciate all the feedback on these. Thank you for watching, for sticking with us, and for supporting us throughout the year. Because we're heading into November now. We're almost at December. The World Cup's starting. It's going to be a very weird month for releases, and we'll have them as and when we can. That being said, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.